Looking to supercharge your metabolism effortlessly? Meet Java Burn. This game-changing supplement boosts fat burning with its natural blend of ingredients like green tea extract and L-theanine. Simply add it to your morning coffee for a tasteless, instant upgrade. Feel the difference in energy and well-being. Try it risk-free today and kickstart your weight loss journey. Don't miss out. Click the link below. Java Burn, your secret weapon for a healthier you.
I drank too much wine that night. But what kind of tourist doesn't have too much wine when they're in Sicily? I was between gigs, wanted to kick back a bit, and so I scored a cheap ticket, booked a quiet hotel on an isolated off-season beach, ate dinner at the hotel's restaurant beachside patio, ordered a bottle of Frappato, and listened to the waves politely patter against the sand. I was the only customer, and the seasoned waiter wasn't there to socialize. After a big plate of sardine pasta, it was 10 p.m., and I was full, jet-lagged, and a bit dizzy from the wine. But it was the perfect cool night for a walk on the beach. So I untied my shoes and took my glass. The beach was long and dark, but I could see well by the three-quarter moon, which reflected its tide-muddied twin off the calm Mediterranean Sea. A few feathery clouds dotted the gray sky. After ambling for a few minutes, I found a big enough piece of twisted driftwood and sat on it. Let my toes sift through the cool sand, finished the last drops of my wine, and just as I was about to thank the gods for putting me on this peaceful, empty beach, I heard a sound. At first, I thought it was a helicopter in the distance. It was dull but rapid reverberation, like a hand keeping a swift beat on a couch pillow. But then it turned into something else. It turned into something human. She appeared out of the dark, running, in what looked like tactical boots. I thought the wine was making me hallucinate. She was wheezing and waving, panicked, and clearly afraid. I was barefoot, half drunk, 6 time zones off, and not exactly a hero at the best of times. But the mystery woman fell into a pile right in front of me. "What can I do?" I asked stupidly. Her lungs were working overdrive and she couldn't speak. She looked like she could more than handle herself, but I figured someone tried to rob her. I was looking in the direction of the dark beach where she'd appeared, but didn't see anyone or anything. She lay on the sand, heaving great sighs. I stood there like an idiot, holding my empty glass. And just as I was about to spit out a few pathetic words of Italian straight out of my guidebook, she finally caught her breath. And soon she'd tell me, in English, thank God, a story that would haunt my waking hours. She'd tell me the story of the possessed drone. You're listening to Run, Fool! I'm Rodney Barnes, and this is episode 35, The Possessed Drone. The woman on the beach looked up to the moonlit sky. She was calmer now, almost like her training had kicked in, because she looked like someone who had been trained. As my eyes adjusted to the dark and the wine, I could see that she was wearing military gear. A full green flight suit, actually dotted with colored patches of her accomplishments. So what the hell was my fellow American doing here on the beach, at night, alone, in Sicily? As she spoke, she rarely made eye contact. She looked around, at the ocean, along the shore in both directions, and up, mostly up, like she was afraid the sky would fall on her. But in between skyward cranes of her neck, Airman Mercy West Daniels told me why she was running. It turned out there was a U.S. Air Force base in Sicily, just a few miles from the hotel, in fact. Mercy had been stationed there for a few months after training at Lackland. She was a military brat. Both her parents served, and she spent her childhood moving from base to base, Missouri, North Carolina, Alaska, Germany. When it was her turn to join up, she chose the Air Force. She wanted to fly. But one slip-up and one stupid test meant she would never get up in a F-15, never be the next great American fighter pilot. But the Air Force could still use her, and use her they did. After finishing basic, Mercy was thrust into unmanned aircraft systems training. She would become a drone operator with a specialty in multi-rotor systems. She learned to operate drones that could hover like mini helicopters. But that's not all they could do. These modern hover drones could quietly surveil and kill. Mercy was trained to do both. Mercy's drone, the VV-0418, was a 15-pound, 6-rotor beast the size of a small cat. It was modified from a relatively harmless commercial drone, but Air Force engineers had turned the VV-0418 into a literal killing machine. All the trainees were encouraged to name their drones so they'd feel more connected to them. She named hers Leo. Her top speed was over 120 miles per hour, and she was nimble. Mercy was trained to navigate Leo through tunnels no wider than a shoebox. Leo had nearly 24 hours of continuous flight time, with an additional fueling station hidden in top-secret locations throughout the region and the world. That meant Leo could fly halfway around the planet without returning to base. Her built-in video cameras could observe and collect data on the enemy, almost anywhere they were. To an untrained eye, Leo looked no different from a drone you might buy at the toy aisle at Walmart, albeit with a somewhat sinister metallic sheen. But when Mercy controlled her, Leo could and would shoot to kill. Mercy's first few missions in Sicily were relatively benign. Locate the enemy, observe, and report. The enemy in this case was located in northern Africa across a narrow strip of the Mediterranean Sea. Mercy flew Leo over the water into the southern desert of Tunisia, where intelligence units had tracked a high-priority so-called insurgent hiding in plain sight among a village of date farmers. These few date farming families had survived in dry Sahara conditions for generations by settling near a small, if plentiful, oasis. The oasis-fed palm trees were the main source of income, but they also provided shade for banana trees and for vegetables and grasses to grow. According to the report handed to Mercy, the insurgent she was to monitor was a Libyan from just across the border. The best translation of his moniker was the sand fox, named presumably after a local species. The sand fox had fled into the Tunisian desert after breaking with his guerrilla group. It was believed they were responsible for at least 2 bombings in the city of Saba. The report included a confidence level of a whopping 55%, just above a coin flip. How's that for intelligence? Mercy sat in the control room in Sicily as Leo flew high over the Sahara toward the village where the sand fox had embedded. The control room could be mistaken for a modern man cave. There were 4 virtual cockpits set up in 2 side-by-side pairs. Each cockpit was centered around a comfy leather lounge chair. The chair had cup holders, a tray for food, a couple of keyboards, and a joystick controller. This was all part of the human-machine interface. In other words, it was everything the human needed to control the machine. Mercy, as an operator, had a fancy gaming headset to communicate with Leo and to hear anything coming from the drone's sensitive mics. And she had screens. Man, did she have screens. Maps, topography, heart monitors, telemetry data, aerials. Hell, she even had Netflix. And of course she had a video screen from Leo's camera and another display for gunsight mode. That's for when Mercy had to aim Leo's microgun, the latest in drone warfare. The microgun shot 2mm bullets known as Kolibri, the German word for hummingbird. The Kolibri bullets cut through air at 200 meters per second with sniper precision. Leo could shoot an eyelash off a bumblebee. The control room was an actual man cave in at least one way. It was filled with men. The other 3 operators were all broy bros with more experience than Mercy. They'd all been on base for at least a year and loved to slap each other 5 when they made a kill. She called them Huey, Dewey, and Louie. All day and night for 2 weeks, Mercy observed the farming village through Leo. During the day, Leo hovered high above, recording the movement of everyone in the village. At night, Leo sank down and hovered among the leaves of the date trees. The sound of her rotors was undetectable on windy nights and could be mistaken for an insect on calm evenings. Mercy found the primary target on the second day. The sand fox's real name was Saad. He looked older than his 34 years. His beard was severed by scars. This was the man responsible for the bombings. For days, she had Leo follow him. She was supposed to find evidence of his activities and patterns in his movement, and he did show a pattern. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., Saad prayed. At 6 a.m., he cultivated a garden fed by the oasis. At 9 a.m., he had tea with an old blind man in the village. And late in the afternoon, after a long day of growing and harvesting, Saad returned to his modest brick home, to his beloved and pregnant wife. At the end of the second week, Mercy got the order. It was one of the senior operators, the one she called Huey, who brought it to her cockpit. "Time to take out the sandfox," he said. She had been taught never to attach herself in any way to her targets, but with the sandfox, she couldn't help it. Every night, after a long day of work, Saad brought 2 flowers home. And it's not like flowers were in surplus here in the Sahara. He had to seek them out. And every night, Leo recorded Saad as he handed his wife the purple desert flower, and then he would kiss her belly and give the second flower to his baby-to-be. Saad did not show any sign of being the insurgents the intelligence reports stated he had a 55% chance of being. It seemed to Mercy that he'd made a life in this peaceful farming village. But her job was her job, and a target was a target. Late one night, just after 2 a.m., Leo hovered just outside the only window of Saad's home. Mercy watched as Saad and his wife slept. It was dark, and she had to rely on the thermal camera. She watched their globby red bodies breathe in and out. Huey, Dewey, and Louie made sure to stay up with her, even though technically they were off that night. They wanted to see Mercy break her cherry and make her first kill. She saw one amorphous red glob, the wife's, get up and exit the house. At this hour, surely going to the outhouse for a pee. "Now's your chance, Airman," said one of the bros looking over her shoulder. Probably Louie. Mercy took aim at the remaining red glob. Saad, the sandfox, only 15 feet away from the hovering Leo, and he had no idea. For Mercy, it was like throwing a tennis ball at the ground. She couldn't miss, but she hesitated. All she'd seen of this target, this man, was that he loved his wife and had a baby on the way. "Do it, Mercy," said Dewey. "That's an order," said Huey. "Take the shot," said Louie. She pulled the trigger, and not even a moment later, Leo fired 3 micro bullets. The glob sat up immediately, and then fell down to the floor, wailing and thrashing in pain for a moment, before going still. "Hell yeah," said one of the ooies, but Mercy wasn't paying attention to them. She was stunned. All the training didn't fully prepare her for taking a human life, even from afar. Maybe especially from afar, since it denied the target even the chance to look his killer in the eyes. It felt cowardly to kill from such a distance, even with the 55% chance this was a murderous insurgent she had shot. She guided Leo inside the hut to confirm the kill. Leo's rotors turned as the insect-like drone flew closer to the red glob. With the shots already taken, Mercy was no longer in quiet surveillance mode. She turned on a small directional LED to see better, but what she saw wasn't good. She saw the wife, dead on the floor, holding her belly and leaking blood out of her chest and stomach. Mercy's motion detector went off on another screen. Someone else had entered the room. On her video screen, she could see Saad in the doorway, staring at his dead wife. "Take him down," said Louie. But Mercy was frozen. She had Saad dead in her sights, but she couldn't move her wrist. "Shoot," said Huey. Before she could, Saad reached out for Leo. He didn't appear angry or violent. He spoke some words in a Berber language. Mercy couldn't understand them, but to her they felt like a chant or a prayer. She came out of her own stupor when one of her alert systems told her that Saad had his hand on the drone. She pulled back and took aim. "Now, Airman," said Dewey. She pulled the trigger. No questions this time. The sandfox took a shot to the forehead, and any prayer on his lips was stopped then and there. He slumped down to the floor next to his wife. Mercy could see she had the day's purple desert flowers pinned to her nightgown.
Looking to supercharge your metabolism effortlessly? Meet Java Burn. This game-changing supplement boosts fat burning with its natural blend of ingredients like green tea extract and L-theanine. Simply add it to your morning coffee for a tasteless, instant upgrade. Feel the difference in energy and well-being. Try it risk-free today and kickstart your weight loss journey. Don't miss out. Click the link below. Java Burn, your secret weapon for a healthier you.
After all her training with Leo, Mercy could only describe her connection with the drone as telepathic. At times, she felt like she and Leo were twin siblings who often knew what the other was thinking. And after making the kill on Saad, Mercy felt that connection break. She'd completed the mission. The sandfox was dead. But now Leo was acting funny. As other villagers approached the house and found the dead lovers, Mercy took Leo high into the air and guided her home. Except, she wasn't responding well. Usually, if Mercy wanted Leo to do something, almost anything, it would almost magically happen. A slight quarter-degree turn? No prob. Hover invisibly in the corner of a room? Easy. Now she was supposed to be coming back to base, but was doing so unexpectedly fast. There was no rush. The mission was complete. No angry day farmer could keep up with a drone, nor cross the Mediterranean Sea back to Sicily. No sense draining Leo's fuel cells. Come back nice and easy. Mercy slowed Leo down over and over, but each time she picked up speed again. She was pushing 100 and still accelerating. She didn't want to let the bros know that Leo was acting funny. Besides, Huey, Dewey, and Louie were already half drunk, celebrating her big night with a 6-pack each. They pointed a beer at her and she took it. Screw it. She'd broken her kill cherry, after all. She could inspect her drone when it reached the base. She put Leo on autopilot and proceeded to party. Mercy woke up a few hours later in her cockpit lounge chair. She was still buzzing from a long night of drinking and celebrating. After a couple Miller Lights, she'd gone from dazed by the act of killing to reveling in her accomplishment. After all, Huey, Dewey, and Louie were proud of her. She got texts of congratulations from her instructors back at Lackland. Everyone was saying she did well, so she decided that was the case. She wiped a blob of morning spittle from her cheek and some chips from her flight suit. She looked around and saw that Huey and Dewey were still passed out at their own stations across the room. The door opened and Louie walked in, a bit unsteady on his feet. She said good morning. He took a half-empty can and chugged. Yuck, Mercy thought. She sat back at her station to check on Leo. She was just a few miles from base and still moving strangely fast. Mercy grabbed the joystick and tried to slow her down, but it didn't work. She called Louie over and told him what was going on. Probably just a little short in her system, he said. Don't bother me with questions like this early, okay? He sat down in his chair and closed his eyes. Even in her hungover state, Mercy was concerned. She and Leo had never been anything but perfectly in sync. Now Leo seemed to be controlling herself. She checked her trajectory. Returning drones always landed at the heliport to prevent collisions, and because that's where the fueling stations were. But Leo's trajectory was off. She wasn't heading to the helipad. She was heading to the control room. She was heading to Mercy. Mercy walked over to Louie and tried to rouse him. What? He said without moving. Let me be. Before she could reply to that idiot, Mercy heard an unmistakable sound. Rotors. The room had no windows. Mercy leaned over and followed the sound, along one wall, and then around to another. The other 3 operators had been roused by Mercy's movement, and they were now all watching her and exchanging what the hell faces. As Mercy and the sound moved towards the door, they all stood, hands on hips, waiting for something to happen. For a few seconds, the rotor sound stayed just outside the door, stationary, patient. Mercy backed away. And then something happened. The door exploded inward. The handle shot apart by a dozen microbullets. As the dust cleared, all Mercy saw was an empty doorway. But then her drone came floating in. "This isn't funny, Mercy," one of the bros said. "Yeah, shut her down," said another. The drone turned, scanning the room, and then let out 3 shots in quick succession, each one to the forehead of Huey, Dewey, and Louie. They died without awareness or regret. Mercy glanced quickly at the floor, which was now covered with the corpses of her colleagues. Then she turned back to the drone above her. "Leo," she said. She circled Mercy, the camera always facing her operator. "Leo, who is controlling you?" Mercy asked. The drone lunged in her direction. Mercy held her hands up. Leo came even closer, now just inches from Mercy's sweat-covered face, her rotors like a tiger's growl. "Who is controlling you?" Mercy repeated. Leo spun and shot wildly around the room. Screens exploded on all sides. Mercy ducked in cover from the glass. Metal dangled from broken equipment. Sparks lit up dark corners. Mercy slowly rose, and Leo returned to monitoring her. "Leo, why are you doing this? Were you hacked?" Mercy asked desperately. Leo turned to face Mercy's station. Her screens were still intact and functioning. She saw pixels form on the black center screen. They soon assembled into a shape she recognized, the pixelated face of the sandfox. "Saad?" Mercy said. "Saad is dead." The pixelated head shook back and forth. "Nuh-uh," it was saying. "Saad is alive?" The face nodded. "You're the sandfox?" Mercy asked. The head shook again. "No." Then the screen showed words. "I am the purple desert rose." "Who controls you?" Mercy asked again. The words on the screen changed. "I control myself, and now you are observed. Always observed." Those words repeated. Always observed. Always observed. Always observed. Mercy did the only thing she could think of. She ran. Mercy ran, and everywhere she ran, the drone followed. She heard the rotor always high above. Leo followed her out of the control room, off base, and eventually onto the beach, where she met a drunk-on-wine rider trying to enjoy a quiet moonlit walk. She told me her story, and I knew then why she was always looking up. She told me that that Saad, was hovering up above us right now, hiding in those feathery clouds. I looked up, but she grabbed my arm. "Don't look," she said. Listen. I told her I didn't hear anything except the wind. "That's it," she told me. "That's her." And when the drone's fuel cells ran low, Leo would just recharge again and return to Mercy. She'd never be alone again. Always observed. Always observed. I didn't know what else to do, so I offered to go with her to the local constable, but she refused. She said Leo would know if she tried to go to an authority. Leo wouldn't allow it. Instead, Mercy just walked off. I watched her continue down the beach. She stared at the sky as she disappeared into the dark night. I never saw her again, but you know writers, never let a good story go to waste. I checked the local papers for a story about the deaths of 3 American airmen. Nothing. I Googled around for it over the next few days. Still nothing. When I got back to the U.S., I put in open records requests for information on an incident at Air Station Sigonella on the island of Sicily. Weeks later, I got a letter from the Air Force. They could neither confirm nor deny that any such incident occurred. Typical U.S. government. They think open means open when advantageous. I tried again, this time requesting the personnel file of one Airman Mercy West Daniels. The letter I got in response said that the U.S. Air Force had never employed nor had any relationship with someone of that name. For a couple of years, I wondered if it was all a drunk illusion, if I'd been hypnotized by the wine and the perfect cool breeze on the beach. I told anyone who would listen about Airman Mercy, Leo, and the Sandfox. Cool story, they'd say, and then move on. Until one day, I told a friend of a friend at a party. Instead of looking away, he looked me right in the eye. He showed me his common access card, told me he was a drone operator on home leave from Germany. Said every trainee knew about Leo. Asked him if he thought it was true, that a man's soul had taken over a drone after his wife had been killed. He said he believed it. He said I'd be foolish not to believe the story of the possessed drone. And he said that since I'd been on the beach with Mercy that night, that the drone knew my face. And if I ever heard the sound of rotors over my head, that would be the last sound I ever heard. Run Fool is a production of Ballen Studios, Campside Media, and At Will Media. It is hosted and executive produced by me, Rodney Barnes. This episode was written by Sean Raviv and produced by Abakar Adan and Lee Mengistu. Editing by Abakar Adan. Sound director, designer, and mixer is Kevin Seaman, and artwork by Jessica Clogston-Kiner. Production support by Jeremy Bone and Cole Lacasio. Special thanks to our operations team, Doug Slaywin, Ashley Warren, Sabina Mara, and Destiny Dingle. Executive producers at Ballen Studios are MrBallen, Nick Witters, and Zach Levitt. Executive producers at Will Media are Will Malnati and Rosie Guerin. Executive producers at Campside Media are Matt Scher, Josh Dean, Vanessa Gregoriadis, and Adam Hoff. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.
Looking to supercharge your metabolism effortlessly? Meet Java Burn. This game-changing supplement boosts fat burning with its natural blend of ingredients like green tea extract and L-theanine. Simply add it to your morning coffee for a tasteless, instant upgrade. Feel the difference in energy and well-being. Try it risk-free today and kickstart your weight loss journey. Don't miss out. Click the link below. Java Burn, your secret weapon for a healthier you.